have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to an attorney prior to and during any question. If you can't afford one, the court will appoint one for you. Do you understand your rights?
When the wolf is at your door, your running's over, that's for sure. He already knows all about you. Cut you down, no matter by you. Now you better walk the line. Real life, real crime.
Warning. This episode of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast, may contain descriptions of acts of violence or that of a sexual nature and should be for people that are 18 years or older. Heed my warning, people. I do not get the facts of these cases off of the internet or from some television show. The facts I'm retelling you were presented to me by the victims of the crimes or the perpetrators who committed the crimes against the victims. My descriptions of the crime scenes, what I saw with my own two eyes. If you're going to get offended, please turn this podcast off now. Thank you. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast. As always, I'm your host, Woody Overton. And we're continuing Scorched, the state versus Scott Peterson, y'all. This death penalty phase, if you've listened to it so far on the defense side, and they're talking to Scott's dad, everybody else too, but Scott's dad, and I don't know why they go back to his parents and all this stuff and what have you and whatnot. We're just getting up to Scott's college years. Again, Scorched to me because if I'm on the jury, and I looked at the autopsy photos of baby Connor and Lacey and heard all the shit, that made me come up with a guilty verdict for him. And listening to this shit that they're talking about, it makes no sense. Absolutely. I mean, I think the defense on this part is too small of a word for what they're doing. I would be so mad having to sit there and listen to this after months of testimony and coming up with a guilty verdict. But we're going to continue with it. It's pretty interesting, actually. So hope everybody stayed warm this past week. And naturally, I'm recording this a little bit early. So you Patreon and convicts and all can get your commercial-free early releases. But we're going to continue. And on the stand, Scott's dad, Mr. Peterson, and he is being interviewed by the defense attorney, Harris. And we're in the death penalty phase, like I told you, and they are trying to paint a human face on Scott like I've never seen done before. But we're going to continue where we left off last week. And this is when Harris starts to talk to Peterson, Scott's dad, in depth about his college. He says, "You mentioned Scott went off to Arizona State and then came back to where?" Peterson, "Back to San Diego for a time." Harris, "And when he was in San Diego, did he start working for you?" Peterson, "Yeah." Harris, "Creighton Company?" Peterson, "Yeah." Harris, "How long did he work there?" Peterson, "Probably 6 months. Harris, "And it was after that period that he then went off to school in Morro Bay. Is that, if I got my time right?" Peterson, "San Luis Obispo." Harris, "San Luis Obispo?" Peterson, "That's right." Harris, "And that's where Cuesta Community College is?" Peterson, "Yeah." Harris, "Before he left, you had supported him when he went to Arizona State, that is, paid his expenses?" Peterson, "Yeah." Harris. Paid his tuition? Peterson. Uh-huh. Harris. You've been basically supporting him up until that time. Peterson. Yeah, he was very serious about a career in golf, and through high school, other than picking up the balls at the range, of course, where we live near, we told him your job is to get good grades, practice your golf, and become a professional golfer. If that's what you want, you need to put in the time, and basically, that's your job. Harris. And is that what you did? Peterson. Become the best golfer you can. Yeah, he did. Harris. And you supported him through that? Peterson. Sure. Harris. And then you supported him when he went to Arizona State? Peterson. Yeah, for the one semester. Harris. And then when he came back, he turned 19. Did he come to you and talk to you about continuing to support him? Peterson. Yeah, this is after he went to Cuesta. And he just moved out of the house in Morro Bay where he was staying with us. And he said, I'm going to move in with 3 other roommates. You guys have done enough for me. I want to support myself, and I'm going to be totally on my own. And he did it. Harris. He paid. Peterson. Every inch of the way. He worked at the Pacific Cafe, and he worked at golf courses, and he went to school. Harris. So he worked more than one job? Peterson. Oh, yeah. He went to at least 2 jobs, sometimes 3. Harris. Just so we're clear, Scott goes off to school in San Luis Obispo, and San Luis Obispo is close to Morro Bay. Peterson. Yeah. Harris. They neighbor each other? Peterson. 10 miles. Uh-huh. Harris. Now you talk about you being there. What is it when you're referring to you being there? What were you doing there? Peterson. This period kind of divides up into 2 periods. We moved there in 1990, Jackie and I. Harris. Previous to that, had you had a place in Morro Bay? Peterson. No. Harris. So the first time you bought a house in Morro Bay in 1990? Peterson. Uh-huh. Harris. And you moved there? Peterson. Yes. Harris. Was this a retirement? Peterson. Yeah, I retired. Harris. You turned over your Creighton company to whom? Peterson. My 2 sons. And after about 2 years, the business wasn't doing so well. So we had to move back to San Diego for about a year. 18 months to get it cranked back up again. And during that period, this is when Scott moved up to Cuesta. Harris. While you were back in San Diego? Peterson. Yeah. So he was living in the house. And after about 18 months, I went up there myself to Morro Bay. Jackie stayed in San Diego to start this other Creighton company. Harris. Let's talk about that for just a minute. When you say you decided you were going to start another Creighton company up in San Luis Obispo? Peterson. Uh-huh. Harris. And what made you decide to do that? Peterson. I think I missed Scott a lot, and then I guess I just wanted another base of income. So I asked Scott if he wanted to go in with me. Harris. And what did you 2 do together to go in? What did you do? Peterson. We each put up $3,500 and bought some tools and started making sales calls. Harris. Business successful? Peterson. Yeah. Harris. Immediately? Peterson. No, It took some time. It didn't take as much time as San Diego. There was less competition. Harris. Looking at photograph D9F-5, it's going to be very dark. Well, having you take a look at that, is that a picture of you with Scott at Central Coast crating? Peterson. That's us. That's our truck. Harris. And was he going to college at this time? Peterson. Yeah. Harris. Had he started in San Luis Obispo or was he still at Cuesta? Peterson. He was at Cal Poly by then. Harris. Was he still working at the Pacific Cafe? Peterson. Yeah. Harris. Was he still working at the golf course? Peterson. He was. He was working at one golf course at night, clean up and lock up the place. And I remember I'd go out there once in a while and catch him after work. And we'd go have dinner and just spend some time together. Harris. You have a sort of you obviously were there. Well, let me ask you this question. How long were you with Scott there while at college? Peterson. Right through his graduation. Harris. So you were there for several years? Peterson. Harris. And you watched him as he worked his way through college? Is that fair? Peterson. Yeah. Harris. Would you say he worked very hard? Peterson. Oh, yeah. He had to. Yeah, he worked hard at school. Did a great job at the Creighton Company. Harris. How many hours a week do you think he was working from what you could tell? Peterson. I don't know. When he slept. He must have worked 18 hours a day anyway with going to school and job. Harris. Did you have a chance to see him when he was working at the restaurant? Peterson. Yeah, quite often, Harris. You would go to the restaurant? Peterson. Take friends there. Harris. What would he do there? What was his job? Peterson. He was a waiter. We always made sure he was our waiter, and he always had a joke to tell us. Tell us what the good entrees were for the day, and the owner would come out and talk to us. They had a very nice relationship, Scott and the owner. Harris. What was the owner's name? Peterson. Abba Imani. Reporter. Can you repeat that, please? Peterson. Abba, Abba-Imani. Harris. At some point, while you were living in San Luis, did he introduce you to Lacey? Peterson. Yes. Harris. How did that occur? Peterson. Well, I remember there were, I think Susan and her family were there and Joe and her family. So it was some kind of gathering, just a weekend in Morro Bay with us. And at any rate, Scott called and he wanted us to meet this girl. So we arranged to meet at the restaurant. And we all drove down there. And I recall Lacey was, she was meeting this huge family and didn't know any of us. And she was she seemed almost shy, which is totally out of character for Lacey because she wasn't a shy person, and didn't know any of us. And she just seemed shy. Harris. Was this unusual for Scott to introduce you to his girlfriends? Peterson. It's the first one he ever introduced me to, yeah. Harris. Do you know about that time, about how long they had been dating? Peterson. I don't know. I don't think very long. Harris. And obviously, later on, they got married. Were you at the wedding? Peterson. Sure. I mean, I made a foolish speech and we had a great time. Harris. They actually were dating and were married for a time period and lived in San Luis. Is that right? Peterson. Yeah. Harris. And you were there during that time period? Peterson. Uh-huh. Harris. Were you with them much? Did you get a chance to see them often? Peterson. Yeah, we saw them a lot. We saw them and they would come over and wash their clothes at our house because our apartment didn't have a washer. And we'd have dinner at our house or go out. And a lot of times we'd meet in San Luis Obispo for breakfast. Lacey would come over. I know of at least twice she planted flower gardens for us. She wanted to try out some new flowers on her new design, and she would show up with her flats of flowers and go to work redecorating our yard. Harris. Now, when they moved to Modesto, were you still at Morro Bay at that point? Peterson. No, we were back at San Diego by now. Harris. So you moved back to San Diego? Peterson. Uh-huh. Harris. What had happened to the Creighton Company? Peterson. I just let Scott have, Scott paid my interest in it, which was just our initial startup money, and I let him take it over. Harris. So did he continue to run it? Peterson. He continued to run it, yeah. Harris. And at some point, did he sell it? Peterson. Yeah, he sold it to finance this restaurant that he wanted to get into. Harris. We heard talk about the restaurant. Is this the one called the Shack? Peterson. Yes. Harris. By the time, so we have the time frame correct. By the time he bought the Shack, he and Lacey were married. Is that correct? Peterson. Yes. Harris. Once they moved to Modesto, did you get to see him very often? Peterson. Not very often. We would probably visit 2 or 3 times a year. Scott and Lacey always came down for Thanksgiving, usually Easter, and then we'd have a few days at Carmel before Christmas. That was our Christmas together. And a couple times, they might run down during the year to see us. So it wasn't anywhere near the contact we had when we lived in Morro Bay. But, I'd say as much as we could, we saw them. Harris. At what point, at some point, your wife's health became an issue? Is that correct? Peterson. Uh-huh. Harris. At what point was that? Let me rephrase that question. It's poorly done. It became sort of a major issue in her life. I know there were always points when she had problems as far as her breathing. Is that right? Peterson. Yeah, she had this respiratory problem since childhood, but it just became progressively worse because of lung tissue doesn't regenerate. In her case, she was losing lung tissue. So at one point, probably 7, 8, 9 years ago, she had to go on oxygen full time. Harris. And is that why you moved to Morro Bay? Peterson. I don't recall. It probably was, yeah. Harris. Did that affect your lives? Peterson. Yeah. Harris. In what way? Peterson. Well, It restricts the places you can go, for one thing. Harris. And why is that? Peterson. She can't go to any altitude, say over 1,500 feet, for any period of time at all. She can't breathe. She can't get enough oxygen. She can't fly anymore. Harris. She can't get on an airplane? Peterson. No, well, she can, but it's such a major undertaking. You have to get them to provide oxygen, and it's not worth it. It's easier to drive, but it impacts, it impacts everything because she doesn't have the energy to do what she wants. 2-block walk is about her limit. She hasn't lost her spirit. She's a great lady. Harris. I want to ask you this. You were around the family and you were home a lot. And were you able to spend a lot of time with Scott? You saw the relationship that Scott had with his mom. How would you describe that? Peterson. Very loving. Jackie's a hugger. She loves to hug him. She loves him. And he loves her as much as any parents can love a single child. Harris. Would you describe it as a close relationship? Peterson. Close. Very close. Harris. Jackie, as far as her personality, you've known her for a lot of years. How would you describe how she reacts to adversity? Peterson. With stoicism. She's very stoic. Very cheerful. Harris. Does she cry a lot? Peterson. Cry a lot? Harris. Yeah. Peterson. Never. Well, I shouldn't say never, but she doesn't indulge in self-pity. She accepts her circumstances and just goes on and tries to make things pleasant for people around her. She has tons of friends she corresponds with and calls, and she's just very high-spirited. She has a great heart. Harris. Has her relationship with Scott changed over the years? Peterson. No. Harris. How would you describe your own relationship with your son? Peterson. I love him very much. I have great respect for him. I just have all these wonderful memories about him as a little guy growing up. I just love him very much. Harris. Are you close? Peterson. Yeah. Harris. How has this affected your life? Peterson. I don't know. I'm frightened. I'm depressed. I guess you'd say, and deeply saddened. Just all the emotions that you might associate with losing someone we loved, and now having our son in this kind of jeopardy is beyond belief. It's something I never thought I'd have to go through. Harris. Are you an emotional person? Peterson. Not on the outside. I have deep feelings, but I'm pretty stoic. I don't express them. I think it's kind of a Scandinavian trait. I remember my dad and mom sending me off to the service, and they both shook my hand. No hugs, but I knew they loved me. Just didn't express it. And when something happened, you were supposed to pick yourself up, figure out what was wrong, and go fix it. Just start here and do whatever needed to be done. Harris. I haven't got much further. I think I just have one other thing to get to if you want to take a break. Then they had a recess, y'all. Look, just killing me. How many times a year you saw him. How many jobs he had, blah, blah, blah. Didn't talk a lot about Lacey there, right? Other than, they got to see her a few times a year, whatever. She planted flowers. Nothing about, how do you feel about her being murdered? But anyway, picking it back up. Harris. Lee, I think we finally got the projector to work a little better, so I'm going to go through some of these pictures. And if you would, just identify what they were. Peterson. Sure. Y'all, I'm going to skip the numbers on them and just read the descriptions. Peterson. That's Scott sitting in my lap. I guess our living room in Scripps Ranch. I'm reading to him. He's probably 3 years old there. Harris. Next one. Peterson. That's the Santa Claus. I'm playing Santa Claus. Looks like Scott is objecting. I can't tell. Harris. Is that the watch you were talking about that he recognized? Peterson. Yes. Peterson. Yep, that's Scott. And he's probably 9 or so, and we were playing golf. I think it's the Sandpiper Golf Course near Santa Barbara. Harris. How old was Scott there? Peterson. I say 9 again. This is, I think it's in France, actually. We were having dinner at a very nice place in Monte Carlo. Harris. About how old at that point? Peterson. About 9. Harris. Shows another picture. Obviously, quite a bit older here. What is that picture from? Peterson. I can't really identify it. Looks like we're having a good time. We have our Hawaiian shirts on. Harris. That's not the shack, is it? In the restaurant, that's not, is it? Peterson. I don't think so. Shows another picture. What is that a picture of? Peterson. That's in our home in Rancho Santa Fe, celebrating Scott's birthday. Harris. Do you remember how old he was in that picture? Peterson. 9 years old. Harris. What is that a picture of? Peterson. That's Scott getting a haircut. Cutting his hair. Harris. Did you usually cut his hair? Peterson. No. After about the second time, he wanted to go see a barber. That's outside he had a father and son breakfast before he graduated from the 8th grade in Rancho Santa Fe. Harris. And that's 8th grade picture? Peterson. Yes. Harris. And what's this a picture of? Peterson. That's Lacey, Scott, and I. Harris. Where is that? Peterson. I think at the inn at Pebble Beach. Harris. Is that one of the trips you took to Carmel? Peterson. Yeah, that would have been one of that's how we'd celebrate Christmas with the kids. We'd get together in Carmel. We probably did that from when Scott first started dating Lacey, right up through 2002. Harris. This is an annual ritual? Peterson. Yeah, it was. Harris shows another picture. What is that a picture of? Peterson. I think that's in Santa Barbara, possibly Catalina. Looks like he's about 12 or 13, maybe. Harris shows another picture. Lastly, you've seen this before. Peterson. Yeah, I'm sure that's on the beach in Santa Barbara. Harris. How old was he at this point? Peterson. He's about 8 there. Harris. Right before lunch, we had talked about sort of after Scott moved to Modesto, it was a little harder for you to see him, obviously. Peterson. Sure. Harris. See him a few times a year. And he would drive down and I think you testified to and you would drive up on occasion. Did you also try a couple times a year to go on hunting trips with him? Peterson. Yeah, we did. We had a place in Lone Pine we'd go to, hunting pheasants. Usually with at least one of his brothers would accompany us, and we would meet Scott there. Harris. And I'm not going to, obviously, you have testified before about the fishing background. I don't want to go into depth on that. We've heard quite a bit about fish, Scott's love of fishing, and you sort of growing up with him through that. But would you also once a year or so go on a fishing trip with him? Peterson. Yeah, once or twice a year. It was usually instigated by Scott, brother Joe, who loves the mountains. So we'd meet up in Mammoth Lakes, and we would hike into some of the higher elevation lakes and trout fish at least once a year. Harris. So even after they moved to Modesto, you were still seeing Scott a number of times per year. Peterson. Yeah, probably average out to once a month maybe. Harris. 10 or 12 times a year? Peterson. Yeah. Harris. Your other children, Susan, Mark, Joe, John. Now, do any of them have children? Peterson. Yeah, they all do. Harris. So these would be Scott's nieces and nephews. Peterson. Uh-huh. Harris. Have you seen him develop relationships with these children? Peterson. Oh, sure. They adore him. They really love their Uncle Scott. He would get on the floor with them and play and roughhouse, play ball, and football, and soccer, and whatever they wanted to do. They had a lot of interaction. So did Lacey. The kids really enjoyed Lacey because she was so small and she was almost the same size. And I think we have pictures of the kids carrying her around by the feet and hands. So, yeah, there was tons of interaction. Harris. You had the opportunity when the verdict was read. You were with several of your nieces and nephews. Peterson. Yeah, I had gone back to San Diego. I had some business to attend to and didn't think the verdict would be in that early. So I was at Susan's house with Joe and JD's families and Susan's families, and 5 grandchildren were there. And we were all sitting on the couch. And as soon as the verdict was read, all 5 of them burst into tears. Harris. That had a traumatic effect on them. Peterson. It sure did. It was just, it didn't stop. I don't know, half hour. They'd come around and hug me and climb on me, and they were just really devastated. Very troubling.
You want to set your child up for success? Is your child struggling with a specific subject, or do they need a challenge to keep them engaged? IXL Learning is an online learning program that enriches your homeschool curriculum. It offers practice in math, English, language arts, science, and social studies, and adapts to each child, meeting them at their personal level. As a homeschool parent, I can tell you that IXL has been life-saving for my son, WL. He uses IXL every day, and it allows me to tailor his learning experience based on his specific skills, not just his grade level. If he needs support, IXL finds his current level and helps him build up to where he needs to be. And in areas where he's advanced, IXL propels him forward without any setbacks. What I love most is that IXL uses visuals in its questions and lessons, which really helps WL learn math and science better since he is a visual learner. The interactive practice problems and educational games make learning fun and engaging. With IXL, school is a positive, fun experience. WL enjoys earning awards in the educational games. IXL is trusted by 15 million students worldwide and has proven to improve in performance in over 75 scientific research studies. Make an impact on your child's learning. Get IXL now. Real Life, Real Crime listeners can receive an exclusive 20% off IXL membership when they sign up today at IXL.com/today. Visit IXL.com/today to access the most effective learning program at the best price. Are you feeling overwhelmed by hormonal changes? I know Sydney was, and if you're a woman, you're definitely not alone. There are more than 1,000 hormone disruptors living rent-free in our environment right now, found in our food, water, and even in our skincare products. These disruptors can wreak havoc on our hormones. Believe me, before Hormone Harmony, I watched Cindy suffer. Not anymore. Hormone Harmony's formula, made only with herbal ingredients, have reduced Cindy's hormonal symptoms, and it helps women of all ages. Then there are the natural hormonal changes our bodies face, such as menopause. While these processes are part of life, they don't have to be uncomfortable. The good news is that you don't have to suffer through it any longer. Hormone Harmony contains science-backed herbal extracts known as adaptogens, designed to help the body cope with stressors, including those chaotic hormonal fluctuations that can disrupt your daily life. Whether it's PMS symptoms like irritability and cravings, or menopause symptoms such as hot flashes and night sweats, Hormone Harmony can help with it all. Happy Mammoth, the creator of Hormone Harmony, is dedicated to improving women's lives by using only high-quality science-backed ingredients. They make no compromises on quality, ensuring that you receive the best support possible. This isn't just a supplement, it has become a phenomenon. Women are talking about it everywhere, with a bottle of Hormone Harmony sold every 24 seconds. And the most important benefit, women express feeling like themselves again. A sentiment echoed in over 30,000 positive reviews. For a limited time, you can get 15% off your entire first order at happymammoth.com. Just use the code RLRC at checkout. That's happymammoth.com. Don't forget to use the code RLRC for 15% off today.
Harris. Since Scott's arrest a little over a year and a half ago, had you had a chance to go see him in jail? Peterson. Many times, yes. Harris. Where was he housed originally? Peterson. Modesto. Harris. How far is Modesto from San Diego where you live? Peterson. It's about 425 to 430 miles. Harris. How long does it take you to drive that? Peterson. 7.5 to 8 hours. Harris. Were you going up there frequently to see him? Peterson. He's allowed 2 visits a week, and I don't think we ever missed a visit. Harris. And you said your wife can't fly. So you're driving every time. Is that correct? Peterson. Yes. Harris. When you saw Scott in jail, what was he like? What was his attitude? Peterson. He always just amazed me. He was upbeat. I think he was trying to protect us from worrying too much about him. He tried to keep our spirits up. We were doing likewise, but it was always a positive thing. Strange as that may sound. Just to be in close proximity to him and then realize he wasn't, totally devastated. He was upbeat. Like I said, I think mainly for our benefit, but he was. Harris. Obviously, you are aware of why we're here. What effect would having your son put to death have on you? Peterson. I don't know. I don't even want to entertain that thought. I just can't imagine anything worse. Harris. I don't have anything else, Shauna. Y'all, good gracious, right? All that time, every single thing is just, his mom has breathing problems and, they went from seeing him all the time and he worked his way through college and but you paid for his tuition for this. You gave him an entry into your company. You did this and this. Look, I wouldn't put any of that on. I mean, he had the most privileged, I'd say above average middle income American life that you could have. You got education. You got to pursue your dream of being a golfer. You got everything. You got the all-American girl. You open up your own businesses. I mean, fuck. You murdered your wife and you murdered your unborn child. What the fuck does any of this do but piss people off who are on the jury? I think they totally missed the mark. Normally in cases like this, they were talking about something extenuating circumstance in his childhood that would have set him off to do this, right? There's some type of psychological or drug dependency problem or something that would make him click, right? Being jealous, anything. There's not one fucking negative thing they said about Scott Peterson. He is a saint, right? Even though the one point on the last episode, he's talking about, he got his ass beat basically at Arizona State. He couldn't even get a scholarship. And he was like, the dad's like, oh, well, I think he felt bad if he beat the other players. He didn't win the rounds because he felt bad if he beat the other players. Get the fuck out of here. You think he wouldn't have beat Phil Mickelson and everybody else? It meant that he got on the PGA Tour? No. I think Scott gets a lot of his bullshit from Lee, his daddy. So thank God we're done with that part. But again, it's Scorched because if I'm on the jury and you're just going on and on and on and on the same fucking bullshit and there's nothing in there. There's nothing in there that says other than he didn't even ask her directly about the nieces and nephews. But he should have said, well, wouldn't it be traumatic for your nieces and nephews if he's executed? Won't it be traumatic for you if he's executed? Wouldn't you like to keep seeing him in prison for the rest of his life instead of seeing him executed? You're trying to plead to the fucking jury to spare his life. I mean, I'm on this jury. Fuck him. He's got it way better than probably 80% of the people on the jury ever had it or their kids have it. So anyway, it's crazy as fuck, but it is what it is. And I don't know. It's Scorched. And again, I'm going to conclude this episode, but y'all, there's a reason I'm doing this. And it's interesting to see the approach that they take on this. Everybody gets married. Everybody has kids. Everybody gets their fucking first job. Where is it in here that it's not Scorched? That Scott Peterson didn't have every advantage in the world. And he did what he did. Now, I have problems. Yes, I do. And I'll talk about them at the end about how the state fucked up their part of their stuff. And if I believe that DNA comes back on that piece of tape to anybody else besides Scott, he's going to fucking walk. If he gets a new trial, he's going to walk. But we'll get to all that. I love and appreciate each and every one of y'all. Thank you for continuing to listen. The longest series we've ever done by far. But I'm not going to stop now because we're in the end throes of it, okay? And Patreon convicts, thank you so much for your Apple subscribers. Thank you so much for your support. I love and appreciate each and every one of y'all. You're getting all your commercial-free early releases 6 days a week, bonus episodes, locked up materials, hashtag Justice for Haley. Y'all coming up on that one also. And when we get done with Scorched, we're going back to original real-life real crime stories. So stick with us. If you don't like this, a lot of you do. And I get it. It's interesting. And that's it. That's all I got to say. Thank you to our sponsors. And LOPA, Louisiana Organ Procurement Agency. Give the gift of life, y'all. People are dying every single day. I've met some. They're dying waiting on transplants. LOPA is a nonprofit agency. They help the families through these most horrible times of their lives. And I've hunted with them. I've fished with them. I've hung out with them, as this is, something that's very near and dear to my heart. And I mean, if it was your loved one that needed a transplant, it'd be near to yours also. But so become an organ donor. You don't have to be a lifer from Louisiana. You can be a lifer from Starkville, Mississippi. Go to lopa.org, fill out the questionnaire, and give all the gifts of life and sight and all that. Look, one more thing. Cold Case Files, Murder in the Bayou. It debuted episode number 5. Debuted last night on January 24th. And y'all can get it. You can stream it anywhere from Prime to Hulu to whatever, or wherever you watch A&E. So a lot of people were asking about it, and I think it's well done, and I hope you enjoyed the show. And in Courtney Coco's story, y'all solved it, lifers. So, all right. I'm Woody Overton, your host of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast. And until next time or ever, don't let me catch you down on Murder Bayou. Peace. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to an attorney prior to and during any question. If you can't afford one, the court will appoint one for you. Do you understand your rights?